I thought, like apartments and townhouses have. But the houses didn't have numbers on the front doors, or the porches, either. So weird. We continued driving, but I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling. Identical houses, extending to infinity. Like someone had just copy-pasted them on a computer screen. I let out a sigh and stared out at the road, looking for signs of life, individuality, anything. And then, finally, through the gloom and mist, I saw a smudge of color. A stop sign. Oh, good. We'll see what street we're on, I said. But as we approached, my stomach twisted. My heart pounded in my chest. There wasn't an intersection. Or even a crosswalk. There was no actual reason for cars to stop. Yet, the stop sign was still there. And there was another one, on the other side of the road, telling cars in the oncoming direction to stop too. There's no reason for a stop sign to be here. Maybe it's like an accessibility thing? Like, the person who owns that house is blind. So everyone needs to stop here so they don't hit them? Does that kind of thing even exist? I mean, great if it does, but I've never seen that. He shrugged. I think we should turn around. Let's just continue a little bit, Dave replied. In like 5 minutes, if we don't find it, we'll turn around. I don't know why I listened to him. I guess it's because, logically, I knew there wasn't much risk to driving around some weird neighborhood. It wasn't like we were wandering around in the middle of the woods, where we could get lost or die of dehydration or get eaten by a bear. It was 1 p.m. in the afternoon, and we were driving down a suburban road. But the instinctual part of myself, the part that evolved over hundreds of thousands of years, that prevented humans from going extinct long ago, was screaming. There is something wrong here. Get out. Get out, now. I drove forward, glancing in the rearview mirror. The stop sign lingered there, its bright red almost unnatural against the gray gloom of the sky. Over the next few minutes, we didn't get any closer to finding Megan's house. There were no street signs. No mailboxes. No indication of where we were going. Even the car's compass seemed messed up, as it switched from north to west a few times, even though we appeared to be going in a straight line. I finally pulled over to the side of the road and pulled out my phone. I'm just going to call Megan, Dave said finally, breaking the silence. Thank you, I snapped back, unable to keep the annoyance out of my voice. After a moment, Dave shook his head. Not picking up. All right, let's just go home. But we told her we'd be there. I sighed and stared at him. Okay, so what do you want me to do? We're lost. GPS isn't working and she isn't picking up. He paused, glancing around. Maybe we should ask somebody. Who? There's no one here. Maybe. Knock on a door? My eyes widened. That's weird. Look, let's just knock on a door and ask. If they don't answer, we'll give up and go home. I puffed out a breath. Fine. I pulled over to the curb. We got out and started up the driveway. It was no longer bright and sunny, the sky was a uniform, overcast gray. And the place was so quiet. No voices, no cars passing by, no dogs barking. Just our footsteps on the pavement. We walked up to the front door. When I didn't see a doorbell, I raised a fist to knock. Thump, thump, thump. No footsteps or barking from inside. I don't think anyone's home, I told Dave. Just wait for a second. The address is definitely 52 Rosebud Lane, right? I'm like 99% positive, but I'll check. Dave pulled out his phone and scrolled. Yep. A minute went by. I knocked one more time. Then I leaned over and peered through one of the windows next to the door. Wait. What? The layout of the house was really weird. The staircase was plopped in the middle of the foyer, with empty space on either side. Beyond it, in the kitchen, there was a floor-to-ceiling tower of cabinets. Not connected to a counter or anything, just there. There was a painting on the wall, of a woman standing on a rainy city street, but her eyes were drawn and upside down. What the hell? It felt like I was looking at an AI-generated image. Something made by a machine, trying to replicate what a house was supposed to look like inside. Without any understanding of the function of stairs or cabinets or human behavior at all. Look, I said, motioning Dave over. But he didn't share my sense of unease. Instead, he laughed. Wow. Whoever designed these houses was an idiot, he whispered. Can we go now? Yeah, okay. We headed back towards the car. As I walked around to the driver's side, though, I felt the hairs on the back of my neck prickle. The familiar feeling of being watched. I whipped around, but all I saw was the row of beige houses, staring down at me with their dark, shiny windows. We should be there by now. You must have just passed it up, Dave replied. No, we didn't. It was almost 2 p.m. now. My stomach grumbled. My shoulders hurt. I just wanted to be back home, curled up under a blanket, watching YouTube, drinking tea. We only made one turn. But somehow, retracing our steps, we hadn't intersected it yet. We hadn't even passed the weird stop sign. Nothing looked familiar, although of course everything looked familiar, because all the houses were the same house. It must just be up a little further. I just want to be home, I whined. But a few minutes later, we passed something that we definitely didn't see on the way in. A house that was different. It was on the left side of the road. Everything about it was identical to the other houses, except for the porch railing. It was installed upside down, bolted into the underside of the roof, the banister at eye level. What the hell? I asked, slowing down the car. We both stared at the house. No builder or designer would make that kind of mistake, would they? A few houses down, there was another house that was different. This time on the right. 2 of the windows had been connected into one long, 15-foot-tall window that extended from the ground to the roof. What the fuck? Dave whispered. This isn't right, I replied, my heart pounding in my chest. And then I saw it. Just a few houses ahead of us was a mailbox. The only mailbox I'd seen on the street. And in small, gold lettering, were the words, 52 Rosebud Lane. Attached to the mailbox was a single pink balloon, fluttering in the wind. No. There's no way. It's not. It doesn't make sense. There were no cars parked on the road. No voices or music coming from inside. No indication that there was a party going on except for that one balloon. I'm calling Megan. The phone trilled in his ear. And then she picked up. Dave. Where are you guys? We're a little lost. We're in this development and. He paused. Do you have a pink balloon on the mailbox? No, she said, confused. It's the blue house on the hill. At the end of the cul-de-sac. Did you turn on Mountain Avenue? It's a little hard to get here. She continued on, but I wasn't listening. I was staring at the house. Specifically, at the upstairs window. Where a figure stood in the darkness, watching us. I started the car and made a U-turn, tires screeching against the pavement. Dave turned to me, eyes wide. Someone's watching us. From that house. I stomped on the accelerator, the car rocketing down the suburban road. Slow down. Dave shouted. I glanced down. I was going 40. We can't, we have to get out of here. You are going to crash, damn it. Slow down. But I did have to slow down. Because up ahead, materializing out of the fog, was a stop sign. This time, a crosswalk. And a cluster of school children crossing the road. I stomped on the brakes. The car screeched to a halt. Dave and I jerked forward, the seatbelts locking us into place. My heart pounded in my chest. Then I looked up. And all the muscles in my body froze. It wasn't a group of schoolchildren. It was an amalgamation of arms and legs. Backpacks and sneakers. Tousled hair and ponytails. Put together like some nightmarish jigsaw puzzle. No faces, no eyes, just things that gave the illusion of a normal group of children crossing the street. I stared at the monstrosity 20 feet in front of us, partially veiled by fog. And then I switched the car into reverse. What the fuck? Call 911. I screamed at Dave. Now. We careened past the upside-down railing, the 15-foot window, the pink balloon. As we sped by, the houses got stranger and stranger. Chimneys leading up to the sky. Floating gables. Hardwood floors that spilled out into the grass. They say they can't trace our location. Dave shouted. Then, I don't know, tell them to go on the highway. Route 140. Turn at Glenmont Road, and then make a right at the subdivision. He relayed that to them, but my heart was pounding. If we hadn't been able to retrace our steps, if they couldn't track our location, how would they find us? I slowed down slightly, glancing around the street, looking for something, anything, that I recognized. But all I saw were the windows. The curtains wide open, in every single one. And people staring down at us. Although people was a stretch, everything about them was wrong. Their faces had all the wrong proportions, stretched and misshapen. Their eyes were set and upside down. They had far too many hands. People that looked like they had been crafted by some horrible AI. Just like the houses they lived in. It's now almost 10 p.m. The sky should be dark. But it isn't. It's the same overcast gray color. We've made so many U-turns, I've lost count. Back and forth, back and forth. But it's never the same. The houses, the people, are always different. Like the world is generating just for us each time we drive down it. Popping in and out of existence. The police called us. They tried locating us, again and again. But every time they failed. They insisted there were only acres and acres of forest where we described our location. I've used my phone to try to get other help. My parents tried to find us, too. Nothing has worked. I only have 10% battery left. So I'm posting this online in the hopes that maybe someone, somewhere, knows how to escape this place. Maybe we'll finally get out. I'm so hungry. I'm so tired. All I want to do is stop the car and lie back in my seat, drift off to sleep. But I'm afraid if I do that, they'll get us. The not people in the houses. They're learning. With each hour, they look more human. More like us. And they're getting bolder. I see children standing on the front lawn, still as statues. Women standing on the sidewalk, with faces that almost pass for human. Men crossing the street in front of us. Whenever we drive by, they all start moving in our direction. Like we're magnetic. A homing beacon. Dave is driving now so I can post this. Maybe I'll take a short nap. For a brief moment, I won't be trapped anymore. I'll dream of being home, curled up with a cup of tea, watching TV with Dave. I'll escape this place, if only for an hour. I'm signing off now. Hopefully someone out there, somewhere, knows how we can escape. And if not, I'll have my dreams to comfort me for a little while. We've been on lock, Mr. Jonas. Mr. Jonas, stop. Micah cried. Don't you see? We have to do this, we need food. It's survival 101. When the pack is suffering and food is scarce, they turn on their weakest member. It's simple biology. Survival of the fittest. Mr. Jonas had his hands around Trevor's neck, squeezing so hard that the boy's eyes were about to pop from his skull. Trevor struggled beneath him, but he was frail and terribly small for his age. Micah grabbed a large beaker from the table and lifted it high over his head. Mr. Jonas, stop now. Don't make me do this. But the teacher was long gone. His eyes gleamed with delight as drool dripped down his chin from salivating at the thought of a meal. I jumped to my feet as Micah brought the beaker down as hard as he could onto Mr. Jonas' head. It shattered to pieces on impact, knocking the teacher out cold. I helped Micah push him off Trevor. The poor kid was wheezing and gasping for air as tears streamed down his face. You are all right. It's okay. You're all right. Micah patted the kid on the back, trying to calm him as he wailed. Suddenly there was a scream like a war cry and Mr. Jonas was airborne. He leapt across the desk and plowed into Micah. They both went sprawling across the tile. Micah resisted him, but Mr. Jonas ended up on top and began dropping his elbows viciously on Micah's face, causing blood to spew from his nose and mouth. Static filled my mind. I didn't think, I only reacted. I reached down and picked up a hunk of glass from the broken beaker, grabbed Mr. Jonas' shaggy hair and pulled it back to extend his neck. I pulled the glass through the meat of his throat as hard as I could. I'd never seen so much blood before. It poured in a waterfall across Micah's chest. Mr. Jonas fell to the side once more, this time never to get up again. I stared at my blood-soaked hands. I felt nothing. No remorse, no fear. Only static. Suddenly the metal slats retracted into the ceiling and the door swung open. Lockdown protocol has been lifted. Please continue with your regular schedules. Lockdown protocol has been lifted. Her cheery robotic voice seemed so distant and out of place now. The other students gathered around me, just staring at the pool of blood. I think it was the hunger talking, but a part of me wanted to know what it tasted like. I think the others did too. Thankfully, before that could happen, a man in a suit strolled into the classroom. Hello, class. His perfect teeth gleamed under the LEDs. Before we could say anything, a team of adults in overalls poured into the room. Some began taking pictures of everything. Others started cleaning up Mr. Jonas. One man with gray hair dropped a large box on the teacher's desk and opened it. He then started throwing fresh fruit and granola bars to each of the students. We devoured everything he gave us. I started to feel more like myself after 2 bananas and 4 granola bars. They tasted like heaven, a sweet salvation. The first man with the nice teeth and the expensive suit waited until we were all done before he addressed us again. I know it's been a long 13 days, guys. I appreciate you all hanging in there. I've alerted each of your parents that you've been cleared to go home. The classroom erupted in cheers as we all hugged each other. Even Micah, covered in gore, danced around excitedly. You'll all be able to go home soon, but first I just need to do a little debrief with each of you before you go. I'm going to set up in the counselor's office and Mr. Moses here is going to bring you down one by one to give your account on what happened here during isolation. We all nodded our heads in agreement, anything to get out of here. Mr. Moses, the man with the gray hair and the snacks, took us down one by one and we spilled our guts to the man with the nice teeth. When I gave my story on what it was like, I still felt numb. Even when describing how I'd killed Mr. Jonas, I just felt nothing. It wasn't until I'd gotten home that evening that I'd broken down and wept. Once I was in my mother's arms, I cried and cried until I couldn't anymore. Then I ate more food than I ever had. I shoveled pasta down my throat until I thought my stomach would burst. It was a good feeling. To be full. To be human again. Years later, while I was at university, a whistleblower had leaked that what we'd endured at the school was a government cover-up for a top-secret experiment. There had been no virus, no contagion. It began as an experiment to test the artificial intelligence system they had at the school. But then it morphed into a social experiment to see how long we would last before someone was murdered or severely harmed. To test the boundaries of civility and moral character under immense pressure. Just in case there was a real issue with the code in the AI and this scenario became a reality elsewhere. When I'd killed Mr. Jonas, it had ended the experiment. The news had made me sick to my stomach. I was angry and disgusted for weeks. I was okay with it now though. You see, Trevor may have been small, the weakest member of the pride perhaps, but he was also a genius. With his hacking expertise we were able to locate Mr. Nice Teeth and Mr. Moses. It's been 6 days so far and every time they scream and hit the door with a chair, I just can't help but smile. It's a little experiment a few of us are conducting. It'll end when someone is murdered or severely injured. Maybe.